All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Trey, just like last week, appreciate you keeping tabs on those in the waiting room and any folks who might have questions in the chat.
Hello.
Uh, well, welcome everyone to Amplify DU session number 2. Happy July. Hope everyone is having a great Tuesday and an enjoyable week so far. Uh, the and I was just thinking, I was like trying to get my days correct, and everyone has fun plans coming up for the 4th of July. For those who were not on our first Amplify DU session last week, welcome. Great to have you here. For those who are here for the second week in a row, thank you for coming back and looking forward to spending time with everyone. Again, my name is Hayden Ron. I serve as the Senior Director of Fraternity Growth for DU. And I'm from the Oregon chapter of 2016 and looking forward to spending the next about 45 minutes to an hour with you all talking about potential new members. So today's session is really focused on the potential new member, both kind of the pipeline piece, but then also the piece around how we communicate with potential new members. And so I think there's going to be some good nuggets of information. We're really excited to share some information that Trey and I recently received at a virtual growth conference that we went to, which I think really helped us understand the need for us to continue to reach out to as many folks as possible. We already knew that, but it just once again reinforced that message for us, and we will continue to reinforce that message to you all as advisors, alumni, and undergraduate leaders when it comes to recruitment. So to kick us off, I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, Trey and I went to or participated in the virtual growth summit presented by Fired Up. Some of you may know Fired Up from your campuses. They are a kind of growth organization and business that helps fraternities and sororities grow on their campuses. They're the ones who develop and own Chapter Builder. And so if your campus has Chapter Builder or your chapter has Chapter Builder, they are the ones who that campus or your chapter is going through. And so they put on every single summer two different summits, one virtual growth summit that's online via Zoom for as many folks as possible, and the other one being in person, which was last week for actually headquarters, specifically headquarters staff who are going on campuses and doing growth and expansion. During the virtual Growth Summit, a few numbers were presented to us, and I think very good for us to share what those numbers were. And so, Fired Up did a research study and conducted a study specifically targeting individuals who did not join fraternities on their campuses. And I can't remember as I share these numbers with you, Trey, I don't have the scope or the or how big the actual research study was. And so, Trey, if you have that number, if you want to throw it in the chat, that would be great. If not, I'd have to look back in my notes to see if that was shared. But anyways, what they really wanted to know, and I think good for everyone to know, is who on our campuses that haven't joined fraternities are one interested in joining, why they aren't joining, and then what might get them interested in joining. And so wanted to share a few of those numbers with you and really hit home why those are important. And I think might surprise some of you on this call. I know we're a little surprising to Trey and I. But again, reinforce this idea that there are students on our campuses that want to join fraternities. And here are some of the reasons why. So the first number we have here is 43% high or neutral interest. So when they asked in their study, these individuals who did not join a fraternity, what was kind of their interest level in potentially joining? 43% of the folks who responded said they had a high or neutral interest. So that's a good number to see, right? It tells us that individuals want to join fraternities on their campuses. They have an interest in joining. And we again, want to make sure we are finding them, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like there. They then asked, out of those 43%, why did you not join a fraternity, right? If you have higher neutral interest, what does this look like? Why did they not join a fraternity? And out of the 43%, 75% said they simply were never recruited. That's pretty surprising and shocking and a little bit sobering, right? Of like 75% of these folks who said, I have a higher neutral interest in potentially joining a fraternity on my campus, were just simply never recruited. So this means that nobody reached out to them to say, hey, are you interested in potentially joining an organization, joining Greek life, joining a fraternity on our campus? This means that these aren't the one individuals who are necessarily registering for formal IFC recruitment, or they're not necessarily coming to the event that you're showcasing on your social media, right? These are just individuals who simply are out there, they have a higher neutral interest in joining, and they just were never recruited. And so this is something that I think is really important for us to note that, again, there are men on our campuses that were just never recruited, and we have to go find them, and we'll talk more about what that looks like there. And then the last thing that they asked, they said, we're going to ask you if would you be interested in joining an organization focused on high moral development, human connection, leadership, and making a positive impact on the world? When they asked the 75% who said they were never recruited, how many of those would actually be interested in joining or saying yes to being interested in joining? 91% said yes to being interested in joining. That is 91% of these men are saying if there's an organization on my campus that again has high moral development, human connection, leadership, and they make a positive impact on the world, I would be interested in potentially joining that organization on my campus. And so I want us to think about this for a second. I know I took a moment to pause when these numbers were presented to us, and Trey and I have talked a little bit about what this looks like here. All these things we see on our screen in terms of high moral development, human connection, leadership, positive impact, we as an organization provide. Our chapters provide high moral development, the development of character, right? We provide human connection, both undergraduate connection, alumni connection, peer connection, social connection, all of those pieces. We provide leadership opportunities, whether you're going to an educational program or you have an opportunity to become an executive board leader or the ability to make a connection to then be a leader in another student organization on campus. We offer that. And ultimately, we do offer through community service, through the Global Service Initiative, through our advancement of justice, we offer an ability to make a positive impact on the world. So that means that 91% of individuals who responded just to this fired up survey, and there's way more individuals out there who they didn't survey or who didn't respond. 91% of those individuals would say yes to being interested in joining Delta Upsilon. And so, with that being said, what does this tell us? And this is something that Trey and I talked about after last session. It's something that in our one-on-one coaching sessions, we will always continue to talk about. It's something if you come to LI and you come to the recruitment symposium, we will talk about. Chapters need to stop thinking that PNMs will just come to us and start putting in the work to go find PNMs on our campuses. So I want to say that again. And if you have a notepad and you're writing stuff down or taking notes, or you're typing on a Google Doc, or you're with your recruitment committee and have your shared document, I want you to write this down. We need to stop thinking that PNMs will just come to us and start putting in the work to go find PNMs on our campus. The individuals are out there. Yes, the always joiners are going to sign up for IFC formal recruitment. They're going to come to our events because they saw it on social media. They're going to come to our events because you know somebody from high school or there's some connection that's made. That is great. But if we think that that's the only place that we are going to be successful in recruitment, if that's the only place we think that we're going to find our PNMs, then we've limited ourselves to finding the best number, both the best quality of individual and PNMs on our campuses and the number we are looking for, and bringing in the best high quality individuals to grow our chapters moving forward. Because there are, and those percentages and numbers tell us, individuals on our campuses that are interested in joining. They've just never been recruited. And if they were, and if an organization that dealt like Delta Upsilon were to approach them and ask them if they would be interested in those things of character and moral development, human connection, leadership, making a positive impact, they would be interested. They would come and start trying to build that relationship. And so we'll talk about, well, Hayden, where do we find these PNMs on our campuses? What does that look like? How do we connect with them? What are all of those pieces there? But I think it's really important to start this session off really sharing and really setting the foundation that we can't just sit back and think that PNMs are going to show up at our door. We need to go out and start building those relationships. We are the ones recruiting. We're the ones that are needing to go find individuals. We're the ones that are needing to fill out our names list, and that's incredibly important. I'll give you a little bit of a real-time um, story that's actually happening right now. So I'm working with our Cal chapter. We're doing a revitalization there, and I'm working with a member, and we're social media DMing. We meet every Monday. We've been doing it now that summer, and we found a time that works for us. The past 3 Mondays, we meet every Monday, and the first Monday we talked about the need to just start getting on social media. There's those class of 2029 pages. If you've been on a one-on-one coaching session with me, you know that's something I will always talk about. Those are just free leads, free P&Ms. There's guys in there that are going to be interested in Greek life, guys who aren't. There's guys in there who are the ones who just said, I would be interested, but I never been recruited. Well, let's go recruit them. Anyways, in that meeting, we talked about these numbers, and then we talked about, well, here's what some research has found, right? That individuals would say yes to this. So collectively, myself and this individual, we worked on drafting a message that's saying, okay, let's utilize outreach and let's utilize some of this language that I recently learned about in a growth summit. And I'll share the message here in a little bit when we say communication to P&Ms. And so he gets on it. He starts following guys on the class of 2029 page. He starts DMing individuals. And I've seen individuals get DM before, and sometimes there's, success and sometimes there's not. They're just looking at the message. And so I wasn't too sure how this was going to turn out. I thought there was going to be some success in this, but I wasn't quite sure what the level of that would look like. I was hoping for it because you always want some good momentum in individuals to reach back out to you. Well, I'm also on their social media page. I have access to it, and I realized when he started sending those messages that he was getting a higher response rate than even I was expecting. We actually met yesterday, and his first comment to me was, "Wow, I didn't expect that many people to respond to me." And what we found was that message really resonated with a lot of these incoming freshmen, that there was this ability and this organization on campus that was allowing for them to have these different opportunities. They also latched on to this idea of non-secrecy. We'll talk a little bit about kind of how he opened, right? And how he kind of broke the ice and how it kind of, I think, in personal opinion, kind of broke a barrier and broke some walls down that allowed for that individual to feel comfortable responding. And so I know that's a small sample size in terms of one chapter, but it's working. And he's been able to connect with those individuals. We're in the process of finding a time to do a virtual info session and start getting the messaging out to as many guys with that, because we can do a lot virtually. We can record that, right? We can continue to send that out, all that pre-work that's happening. But we utilize this kind of information we had to really think about how we can message or change our messaging, knowing, hey, if we don't get the response that maybe we're looking for, okay, how do we be flexible in that? But so far, it is working. So I highly encourage, if you're thinking about how do we DM, maybe we're not getting the response that we were hoping for. We'll talk more about communication of P&Ms here in a bit. Let's think about what our language looks like and what could the response rate be if we tweak things a little bit. So just a story there, and it's front of mind because it's something that's been going on for the past 2.5, 3 weeks, and I'm very happy to see that working out in that outreach for our VP down there at Cal. So, with that being said, you're going to say, Hayden, again, where do I go find these P&Ms on our campuses? Yes, I can get an IFC list. Yes, I can get a no bid list. Yes, all these things can happen, but where do I go find those individuals? And quickly, before I get there, I got ahead of myself. Let's do some math. And again, if you've been in a recruitment session or an Amplify DU session or a recruitment symposium, you know there's some math involved with this. And so this is from Fired Up again. This is from the virtual recruitment summit or growth summit. And so they kind of broke it down in, okay, if I'm wanting 15 new members, let's say this fall, where do each of my kind of stages need to be at? And we'll talk a little bit about ABCDs here in the pipelines, need to be at in order to feel comfortable enough that we're going to reach that goal. And so real quick, just to define those ABCDs, and if you're in Chapter Builder or you've worked with a recruitment coach and talked about this, this will you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, highly encourage this. So The D's right there, those are individuals who you have on your P&M list, but you have yet to contact them for whatever reasons, right? You may have met them at tabling, and you just put them on your list. You may have put them on your list because you've had an alumni referral form and a few alumni filled that out. You may have them on your list because there are 10 guys you know that are coming from one of the chapter brothers high schools. Whatever the case is, they're on my list, but I haven't contacted them yet. C's are, I've contacted this individual and they've expressed some sort of interest. They've said, yes, I'm going to come to a event. I'm going to show up to a dinner or a lunch. Yes, I'll be, happy to set up a virtual meeting with you. There's been some sort of connection, interaction, and they've expressed interest in DU. B is there's mutual interest. They're interested in DU, you're interested in them through kind of the relationship and in the conversations you've had. And then A's are individuals that have bid. So you've actually extended the bids. I will say with B's, those are both mutual interest to the point that you would extend a bid to somebody. And A's would be, I've actually extended that bid to that individual. So this breaks it down a little bit. So you can see here that our ratio in terms of how many new members we're looking at and how big our names list is about 1 to 15 to 20. I sometimes say 1 to 10. So if you are saying, hey, Hayden, we want 100 and we want 15 new members, I would tell you you probably need a names list between 175 and 250. So right around in there in terms of just guys on the names list. You then see out of that, it kind of cuts in half. About half of those guys need to at least express some sort of interest. Half of those guys need to be individuals that we have mutual interest in and want to extend bids to. And then half of those guys would actually be individuals that have received a bid, knowing that half of those, if not more, right, ideally more, are actually going to accept that bid. And so it's just a way to break that down. I think as we're working through our names list and as you're working through your recruitment template with your committee, with your advisors, with your recruitment coach, really keep this in mind, right? If we're looking at this and saying, I want 15 new guys, 15 new members at the end of recruitment in the fall, but my names list is only at 75, we have a lot of work to do. And there's a lot more that we need to be looking at and a lot more individuals we need to be reaching out to because the likelihood of reaching our goal is less because we just don't have that many men on our list. And then that bottom one is how many pipelines. So where are we finding our men? So in this case, we're dividing that by 15. And so 16 different pipelines would be ideal here, right? So we want to have 16 different places that our potential new members are coming from. So it's going to diversify where we're seeing them. And these pipelines can be anywhere from tabling to IFC recruitment to no bid list to alumni referrals to high school referrals to somebody I just meet in class. So those are all different pipelines there. But it's showing that we need to increase where our P&Ms are coming from. Again, how many individuals are on campus that are just not recruited, and that's going to allow for us to more have a higher likelihood of reaching our goal because we're increasing our pool of individuals moving forward rather than just limiting ourselves to two or three normal pipelines of individuals of quote unquote those always joiners, right? Or we just don't know where else to find guys. And so that's what we're here to help do, right? Like talk about what areas on campus can you tap into that aren't always there? We do this on expansion. We always ask, where are areas on campus that we can tap into? We'll ask students, we will ask staff, we will ask fraternity and sorority life office. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, there's actually not a lot of students from the honors college. So you should go set up a table outside of the honors college or go see if you can present to the honors college. And so we'll go down that path. So there's a lot of different options there, and we'll provide some resources and some thoughts about where those can come from. So on the QR code, this is a great resource that's a free resource provided by Fired Up. It's called Names Drivers for Fraternities and Sororities. This is 60 different ways in which Fired Up says, hey, here's a way in which we can find P&Ms. And so it's a really, really good one to go through as a VP of recruitment, as an advisor, as an alum, as a member of the recruitment committee to say, okay, do any of these or could any of these work for our campus? Could any of these work for our chapters? Not all 60 are going to work, but we have 60 different options to look through, explore, and it may honestly get you thinking about option number 61, right? Or the option number 62. And so it's a great thing. And I would highly encourage you as you're thinking through and you're working through your recruitment plan, knowing that, hey, where are different pipelines for finding PNMs? This is a great tool to use in your next recruitment meeting, in your next kind of sit down when you've blocked off that time as the VP of recruitment to focus that week on what the next steps are. Go through this resource. It's free on the Fired Up website. Take a scan of the QR code and go through that. Some high level ones that I will mention, both from a digital pipeline and a traditional pipeline. So, again, when we talk about those 16 different pipelines, we do have that ability to use both digital and traditional pipelines. And obviously, digital ones are big. So you'll see a few here. I think a few to point out, right? We talked about the class of 2020X DMs, right? And that doesn't necessarily have to be 2029. You could go back and see, hey, maybe we start DMing some of those sophomores, right? Because maybe there's a handful of those guys who think, wow, I can't actually join now because I'm no longer a freshman. Let's maybe find some of those individuals, right? The follow back in the DM, right? And so we're following somebody, they may follow us back, and then we're going to DM them a message. So that's a great kind of pipeline there. You may know somebody on campus or maybe a different organization on campus, and maybe you do a collab with them, right? And just to continue to get the name out, really focused on if you're interested in DU, what does this look like? You got polls, you got stories, you got Q&As. Make sure your referral forms are in your bio link. Anytime I meet with a chapter, I'm going to check their social media. If there is not an easy way for me to express my interest in that chapter, first thing I'm going to tell them is put the referral link in your bio, or tell me how to reach out to you if I'm interested. We far too often think that 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds are just going to DM us, cold DM us, and again, come to us if they are interested. No, I need to be very upfront, very clear on how you reach out to me. It doesn't mean you're going to get all these referrals, but it does allow for somebody who is interested to say, hey, I'm interested in there. I'm going to click the link. I'm going to fill it out. Or it allows for you to send a message and say, hey, if you're interested, fill out this form or fill out the link in my bio. It's super easy, right? Any contest of any type, post a story with members, tag friends. So something that I was talking to, I think either members of staff or colleagues of mine, or maybe even a chapter, is if we start following individuals and we know that individuals are following us back, we should be taking note of who those individuals are, right? So who are the guys that are following us back? Who are the guys that we're interacting with at some level? When you post about recruitment. So whether that is your post about recruitment events, or maybe it is your recruitment video, or whatever the case is, I was telling whoever, I can't remember whether it was staff or colleagues or a chapter I was working with. I said, well, why don't we know who Instagram handles followed us back or that we've interacted with? And in the comments, as a recruitment committee, go in there and tag those guys in those comments so that they get a notification and actually see the post, right? So we want to make sure that it's visible to them and make sure that there's a personal connection, right? Like, hey, at Trey McDonald, looking forward to seeing you at the event, right? Hey, at Josh Smith, at San Clemen, at Tristan Cruz, I'm going to see you there, right? So just getting that in there so at least they're seeing that and making that connection, knowing that you're going to follow up with them personally in a DM, but also putting that in the comments to hopefully get some traction there. So those are some digital pipelines. Traditional pipelines you'll see down here. Some groups, have the ability to provide recruitment scholarships. Some campuses provide email lists. So I work with a group that is able to actually email all incoming students. And so they do have that opportunity there. You may have dean's lists that are available. And that might provide information, or you might have a student directory where then you can find the email to students who are on the dean's list. And so sometimes that's tedious. But if you know they're on the dean's list, they excel academically, check on my criteria box. I can then go in there and really start reaching out to those individuals there. No bid list, pass recruitment list. Yes, there might be student leader lists, right? So some campuses have a list of all their like orientation leaders. Great way to become involved with orientation and vice versa. Volunteers with campus officers, obviously referral forms. So you'll see this on here, right? High school connections. I think the traditional pipelines, folks are pretty good with. Meet students at move-in day, even orientation or admitted students day. I think transfer students, I've had a lot of conversations with folks recently around how do we capitalize a little bit more on transfer students. I introduced my wife last week to you all, Elise. She is a transfer. She went to Cal State San Marcos, transferred to Oregon. The first thing I noticed is that her orientation into Oregon was just lackluster, and she was looking for more to do. Unfortunately, she, had the connection to myself and others, and she was in a sorority at San Marcos that wasn't at Oregon, so she was looking for more to do. And my thing was, hey, fraternities are a great way to get those transfer students who are looking for a community on their campus, a way to provide that community. And so think about, is there a way to capitalize off some of those transfer students and reaching out to them? So again, traditional pipelines, digital pipelines, I would go back, scan this QR code, and in your next one-on-one meeting with your recruitment coach, in your small group meeting with your recruitment coach and the rest of your chapters, talk about where are we finding PNMs? What have you seen be successful? What have you not? What I will always say is, and this is something that was shared with us last week in the in-person startup summit that Trey and I were at, is one of the best characteristics of a VP of recruitment, of an expansion consultant, of anyone, is this idea that we want to continue to say yes, right? Yes, let's try that, right? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if we don't try it, we don't necessarily know. And there's been plenty of times in my experience as a staff member, as an undergraduate, as an alum, where I said yes to something I wasn't too sure about, and it paid off, right? And so allowing for us to say yes and not necessarily say no to it because you're not too sure is the way to go, and the mindset that we need to have there, right? Even if it's, let's say yes to this for the next week and let's reevaluate, perfect, right? We don't need to say yes to something for the entirety of the rest of the summer or the rest of the school year there. All right. So pipelines, where we find PNMs, two things that we really want to dive more into in terms of our one-on-one meetings, the small group meetings, you as the VP of recruitment when you're working with your recruitment team, your advisors, your alumni, all of those pieces. Now we want to think about how are we communicating to PNMs. So if I have this list of PNMs, what does my communication look like? And this is a conversation I have with a lot of chapters. I've seen it done well. I've seen it done not so well. I've seen it done very effectively and efficiently, and also not effectively and efficiently. And so I think three things are really key when we're thinking about effective communication to PNMs. Those are: one, you make it personal; two, it's brief and to the point; and three, it includes a call to action or a question for the PNM to respond to. And so below, you'll see an example that I wrote. This is similar to the example, or this is similar to what the our Cal brother is sending out to those class of 2029 individuals. I will always say, and when I give scripts to individuals, so you can take a picture of this, you can do what you need with it. I will always say, feel free to, change it up based off what works for your campus or what you know. But this is kind of a good guide that I would say that we use on expansion, and that some of our best recruiters are using as well. So it's going to be personal, hey, fill in the blank. Hey, Trey, right? Hey, Josh. Hey, Sam. Hey, Tristan. Hey, Hayden, right? We want to be personal to that person, right? We want to copy, paste, and fill in the name, because we don't want it to just seem like it's a blanket text going to everyone, right? I think that's really important, and it can make all the difference for somebody, right? You want to put your name and who you are, right? In this case, I'm thinking myself as an undergrad. My name's Hayden. I'm a fellow student, right? So in this case, I'm knowing my audience. I'm talking to incoming students. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to congratulate them on committing to the U of O. And I just wanted to first break the ice by letting them know, if you have any questions about being a student, happy to answer those for you, right? Anything from what does move-in day look like, to how to be involved, to, what does class look like? Where's the best place to eat on campus or off campus? Any question, right? Happy to answer those for you. And then also, let's tie in DU a little bit, right? I'm the VP of recruitment for Delta Upsilon, and we're using that language, that fired up said is getting 91% of those individuals to say, yes, I'd be interested in joining, right? So we're a chapter that's committed to these different things. For Cal, we switched it up a little bit. So we talked about high moral development. We talked about leadership. They have great alumni connections, positive impact. And then I have that call to action or I have that question for a P&M. Would that be something you would be interested in learning more about? And this is incredibly important because it's essentially providing a call to respond to me, right? And not everyone's going to do it, but we saw this on expansion when I first started. So back in 2016, went to the University of Texas. We started doing this cold outreach. We were personal. We were brief and to the point. I don't need to get too much into it, right? Too long of a message. I'm going to lose the person I'm sending the message to. And we would talk about the fraternity, right? We'd want to set up a meeting and we'd end with, let me know if you're interested. Or we'd end with, hope to see you there, right? If we were hosting an event or hosting a dinner, hosting a lunch, we got very little response. And quite frankly, looking back, I'm not surprised, right? Because those two responses or those two endings don't necessarily elicit anything. All right, I'll let you know if I'm interested. All right, maybe I will be there. Doesn't really allow for there to be any follow-up. We as an expansion team got together and we said, okay, well, what's a different way we can do this? And we went back to our training and we went back to thinking, okay, well, what were we taught to do? Right? Should have done it in the first place, but we necessarily didn't. We were taught to end in a question. So let's start ending that, right? Would you be interested in learning more? When are you available this week for a meeting, right? Hey, are you available to show up to the event, right? Would you be interested in meeting some more of the chapter brothers who are in town? Whatever the case may be. And what we saw is we were getting more responses, both good responses, positive of like, yes, I'm interested, love to learn more, love to set up a meeting, and negative responses, but both were beneficial because what that meant is I knew where to channel my energy. Okay, here are the guys who are interested, and I can have a clearer picture on where my numbers are at. And here are the guys who just aren't interested. And that's totally okay because not everyone's going to be interested in DU or joining a fraternity on campus. That's fine. But I could more easily then communicate to the P&M. Great, let's set up that meeting. Great, you're going to be at that event. Then what happens if they're not at the event? Hey, I can follow up with you. Hey, super bummed you didn't make it to the event. Just wanted to see, if everything's okay. Here's our next event. Do you think you're going to be able to make it, right? Or a few buddies of mine, a few chapter brothers of mine are going to the library later. Do you want to join us to study? Whatever the case may be. So it opens the door for more follow-up and more communication than not ending in that question. And so I have found, and I think even in our past couple conference and trainings that Trey and I have been to recently, these are things that they're going to share as well. And things that probably you as chapters, if you've implemented them, has seen some successes, right? And kind of seen what those look like. I would encourage you in your small group sessions to talk about this, right? With your recruitment coach, talk about what have you seen? What are some wording? How can we kind of change this up a little bit for our own campus to allow for ourselves to continue to kind of think about how we're going to get a better response rate. The other piece, some additional keys that I think are really important, be consistent. I don't know how many times chapters I've worked with said, we're just not getting a response, or I texted this guy once and he just hasn't responded to me. Well, text him again, right? You can't be too overbearing. We don't want to be texting them every single day for the next 3 weeks, but we need to be consistent, right? Hey, just following up on this. Hey, one last follow up. Just wanted to see if you were interested at all. I've seen this before where they didn't see it the first time, they didn't see it the second time, or maybe they did and they weren't too sure about it. And then the third time they saw it, and maybe that third time they talked to somebody or got brought up in a conversation and now they're interested, or they saw you tabling, right? And you said hi to them or whatever the case is, and now they can respond. Or maybe the first two times they were just so swamped with everything else they just didn't get around to it, and that third time allowed for that to happen. So you just have to be consistent, right? That's just in the outreach piece. You also have to be consistent in your follow-up. Typically, I'm going to say no more than, 24 to 48 hours without some sort of touch point in terms of, hey, this is when our next event is, or just a reminder, this is when our next event is, or hey, few of us are going to the intramural fields to go play some football. Would you be interested in joining? So some of those things that are just, I want to stay in communication with that P&M pretty consistently. Because I always say, if I'm not another fraternity on campus is, right? And I want to make sure that that P&M is the one responding to me. And when that other fraternity texts them, they are prioritizing my text because I've been consistent with my messaging, my communication, and my relationship building. Second piece is knowing the next touch point will be and who is in charge of that. So this is super important, especially for VPs as you're overseeing a committee. Make sure you're delegating who is responsible for communicating with who, when those next touch points will be, and then communicating that to the PNM. I was just in a expansion training with Trey earlier, and we were talking about, hey, at the end of every one-on-one meeting we're having on an expansion, we always tell them, here's when you can expect to hear from us. And here's who you most likely will be hearing from, right? So it just gives them kind of the, okay, I expect for Josh to reach out to me within the next day, right? To set up X meeting, right? Or I expect Sam to reach out to me to let me know about the info for the info session coming up. Or I expect Tristan to reach out with the recruitment schedule and seeing which ones I can go to. So we just need to be very clear with them on when that next touch point will be and who will be in charge. That's why in every recruitment committee meeting you have, which you should be having weekly, it's in your plan. We're going to see, right? So we're asking that you really think about when those are. If you're not having them, start scheduling them. Go through your P&M list, right? Okay. When's the next touch point? Who's in charge? Have we communicated that with that P&M? Great. Let's go on to the next person. If we haven't, what do we need? What's that next touch point going to be? When does that need to be? All of those things. Third is share as much information as possible. Upcoming events, dates, opportunity to connect, right? We want to make sure that we are providing them with that information. We don't want to be like, if we know when our events are going to be, we shouldn't be gatekeeping that. If we know that there's an opportunity for somebody to connect, we shouldn't be gatekeeping that. So none of that should be happening. Mentioned this already. Don't just say, just let me know or hope to see you there. Ask if a PNM is interested or planning on attending. Already talked about why that's important and how we can go about doing that. Always encourage P&M to bring friends or others they might know. This is something that's like, hey, awesome. In P&M responds to me, and I'm going to say, great, feel free to bring along roommates, or if there's any guys on your floor or anyone you're in class with, have them come to the event. I think sometimes we think that is natural. Hey, that guy should know that he can bring anyone else. But sometimes 18, 19-year-olds don't always feel comfortable. Hey, I'm going to this fraternity event. They only reached out to me. Can I bring my friend? Right? Especially if somebody's not going through the formal process, right? Or somebody who might be more of the like neutral, I'm interested, right? Hey, have some encourage them to bring other people along, and it's going to add to your names list because that's an individual that you might not know. And then the last piece, and this is not just for communication, but this is for everything. Use your recruitment committee to help delegate, delegate, delegate. If you are, getting hundreds, some groups, because of the way their campuses are, they're putting in thousands of leads, or they're providing all of this. You as the VP of recruitment or you as the two VPs of recruitment can't communicate to everyone. That's just a lot of time and a lot of energy. And you have other things going on. So get your recruitment committee, get your committee of five and delegate who's communicating to who are the point people there, right? I mean, everyone else does it. When I was VP of recruitment as an undergrad, it was myself and I had four recruitment chairs and we had hundreds of names and we delegated. I was texting, 100 to 125 guys, and the other guys were texting anywhere between, 75 and 100 guys, right? And that's just kind of what we committed to. And we ultimately recruited 20 guys that fall because we were consistent. We were always telling about the next touch point and we were using each other and checking in with each other about how we were communicating, what next steps needed to be, when folks were going to be where. And I was able to delegate a lot of those responsibility and not feel like all of that fell on me, which becomes overwhelming. And then sometimes we can shut down with that overwhelmingness. And I know I've done it. So if we don't use that help, so definitely help, definitely delegate, definitely have those conversations there. So that's communication. I know there's a lot of other kind of points that I think different coaches or folks will point out. Talk about this in your one-on-one meeting. Talk about this when you're going through your recruitment plan. Talk to this with your committee, with your recruitment advisors, with your alumni. Talk about this in your small group sessions that will be coming up. This is all, there's a lot of information that we can share, a lot of best practices, a lot of maybe some trial and error, right? Like we tried it this way, or I'd be careful doing it this way. totally fine, right? Let's use each other to continue to get better. But I think overall, between this effective communication involving three things, this example, and these key touch points, those are very common practice, things that we have seen be successful, things that I have seen to be successful, and things that I continue to do as I help either chapters recruit or we go on expansions for the fraternity. So how to keep track of P&Ms. So again, you're getting a lot of these P&Ms getting into your system. And if you do not have a good way of tracking them and you do not have a names list set up and you do not have an organization system, all that work could be for nothing. Seriously. And so if you're sitting here saying like, oh, well, I just kind of keep them in my phone, or everyone has the guy's number, and so they're kind of keeping track of them themselves, or it's all through Snapchat or it's all through Instagram, we're in serious trouble, right? And so we need to start thinking about how we're tracking them. I think three really common ways that we've seen chapters do this. First is the DU portal. So in the DU portal under recruitment, you have this is actually where you report everyone. You have the ability, and it's free to track every single P&M, right? So if you get a name and you go in there and you input the name, and you then can put them through the process, right? You can have the left side be completely for your quote unquote D. So anyone who is on your list. Then you've got your C column, which is anyone who is of has expressed interest. You've got your needs a bid. You've got bids extended, and then when you actually report would be here's whose bids are accepted and then reported. So utilize the DU portal. I think chapters sometimes forget this is a tool. If you want a tutorial, you want to go through it quickly, reach out to me, reach out to Trey, reach out to one of your recruitment coaches. We can walk you through what this looks like, and allowing for us to utilize this free resource that we have that's going to help you keep track of P&Ms. And then it just helps with your meetings, right? Like now I can just open up the DU portal all together. We can look at it, we can go through the list, and we can be very efficient and very effective and save a lot of time, a lot of headache, rather than being like, hey, there's 20 guys that I know Tristan's talking to, but Tristan has all their numbers and Tristan's out of the country. Well, we just lost a week and a half of any sort of communication to those individuals because Tristan's the only one with those numbers. Chapter builder. So chapter builder, sometimes the chapter will buy it, or the IFC will provide it. So if you're a campus that your IFC provides chapter builder, please use it. They are going to provide names. There's some campuses that's where all of the IFC kind of recruitment names are going. I have a couple campuses where they are inputting every single incoming freshman into Chapter Builder. So if you're telling me I can get thousands of names all in once, amazing. But if I don't know or I don't know how to use it, or I don't know that I have it, then that's an issue. Or if I'm not using it the way I should, that's another issue, right? So use Chapter Builder, utilize that, add your advisors, add one. If you have a recruitment coach and you have Chapter Builder, please add either myself, Trey, Josh, Sam, or Tristan, depending on who your recruitment coach is, because we can then go in there and look and help you kind of go through what that looks like. And it's real-time data to help you understand what that is. Your advisors can do the same thing. So please utilize it. If you don't know if you have Chapter Builder and you literally just are like, I'm not sure, I'm new to my position, I haven't heard anything, shoot an email to your IFC, shoot an email to your fraternity and sorority life office. They're either going to say yes or no. And if they say yes, you're going to get on it, right? I have a couple chapters I work with where it's like, hey, let's get you access to it, right? And let's push the issue a little bit. If you're one, I know some chapters have reached out, and I appreciate this outreach, who have talked to me about, hey, our chapter builder, we can see the names, but we would need to upgrade the plan to actually do any sort of like mass outreach. So the nice part about chapter builder is you are able to do mass outreach, depending on if you are on a certain plan. While we unfortunately, and I wish I could, at this moment, we unfortunately can't provide that to every chapter. I do encourage chapters to really take a hard look at their budget and think about if I have 2,000 names that are coming from campus or coming from IFC that are in Chapter Builder, and I can more effectively and efficiently utilize Chapter Builder to do outreach, still maybe have the DU portal as a way to keep track of those who, we ultimately need a report, but Chapter Builder does a lot of the rest. Let's have that conversation about if we can budget that in. right? And let's think about how we can capitalize on doing that outreach there, right? If we're getting all these names and it's easy for us to create our own phone number in Chapter Builder and send emails and send text messages, let's do that. Or call guys, right? Or whatever the case is, let's ultimately do that. And so if you have questions on that, shoot me an email, shoot me a message. We can talk more about what that looks like there. But because IFC provides it, they don't always provide it to the level that some chapters want to use it at. And I totally get it. I would just have that conversation internally with an exec board. Look at your budget as a recruitment, and maybe that's what you want to budget because I've seen chapters both within DU and outside of DU take and invest in Chapter Builder in that way, and they see a great return on their investment. They're paying for it because they're getting thousands of names in some cases from their campuses and their universities and their IFCs, and through Chapter Builder, they're able to just recruit and better effectively do that. The last one would be shared Excel or Google Doc. I know chapters still use this. So, this is a way to kind of keep track of everything. Ultimately, the biggest note is you have to identify a way to keep track of P&Ms and be diligent with keeping the list updated. And what I mean by diligent, if you're the VP of recruitment, go in there every single day. And if there's no update to it, then fine, right? You spend 5 minutes in there. If there is significant updates that need to happen, okay, I've got to block out 30 to 45 minutes to just kind of clean things up, follow up with guys on the recruitment committee, whatever the case may be. Every single week you have a recruitment committee meeting, you should be going into your names list, talking about what do I need to be doing with my names list. If you're an advisor and an alum, this should be something that you have access to, and you are following up and asking your VPs of recruitment, hey, why does this seem a little out of date? Hey, have we followed up with this individual, right? And as VPs of recruitment, embrace that your advisors wanting to help, wanting to have those conversations, wanting to be involved in that way. Because we all need some accountability there, right? If our recruitment coaches on the call, right? We want to make sure we're following up with that as well. That's the way that we are going to be the most efficient and be the most effective and have the highest likelihood of reaching and hopefully exceeding our goals. So with that being said, there's a lot of information, and the thing I want to do, kind of, to wrap us up, is if we think about uh, pipelines, if we think about communication to P&Ms, if we think about building a names list, I want to hear and see kind of what are your action item? What's your action item coming up for the next week that you are going to focus on when it comes to recruitment? I will also include what's your action item. Maybe it's not from this week, but maybe it's something from last webinar that you've been thinking about. What is something over the course, and it can be multiple things. I want you to throw it in the chat, both undergraduates and advisors, even recruitment coaches, if you can think of something. What is your action item for the next week that is going to push your chapter's recruitment forward and make it better to obtain those recruitment goals that you're looking for? So I'm going to take a minute and I want you to throw those in the chat just so we can kind of see what folks' action items are. Awesome. Yeah. Find new pipelines for North Carolina's recruitment pools. Definitely. They're out there. Start an organized names list. Thanks, Tristan. What else? What are other action items we're seeing on your chapters? I know they're out there. Kathy, we've joined the freshman group, but I'm not sure how diligent they are about DMing. Yep. So just like action item being, some follow up with the chapter on how are we DMing. Levi, yeah, better delegate to the rush committee. Definitely appreciate that. Simon, we aren't allowed to reach out to PNMs technically until week 2 before rush, but I've planned all events, finished budgeting, and starting a PNM spreadsheet to share with the chapter. Awesome. Yep. So doing all that prep work, I love that you're doing that now, instead of August 1st, August 5th, and starting that process, which some chapters get into. Jack, get a better understanding of our new IFC guidelines from the end of spring in terms of recruitment and what is allowed for us and when. Yep. So understanding those IFC guidelines is important. And then I think, Jack, to further that, let's work with the recruitment coach to kind of see where we can fit in and what are some things that you could be doing. Joey Lovett, draft a message to DM PNMs. And if you want us to look over that, Joey, please send that our way. So chapter builder use, especially for schools with premium access. Awesome, Trey. Sam drafts some messages for chapters. Yep. So Sam being the recruitment coach. Michael, plan for social media posts, outreach towards upcoming. Love it. Josh, meet incoming freshmen, get interest early. Gabe, Google sheet with names. So yeah, just getting that names list. Jake being more consistent, increasing scheduled social media, help with chat. Awesome, guys. This is great, right? And these are all actionable, easy things. Yep, Evan, create a shirt and merch for Rush, post interest form on social media, right? Like small things that we can be doing that are not going to fully change the game, but are going to get us in a place that is going to get us 1% better, right? I think that is incredibly important. Yeah, Noah, starting a Google Shoot P&M info and reaching out more on social media. Raphael, look at freshman 2029 interest page and take note of the freshman guys. Yeah, right. Like we need to constantly be thinking about like what's our action item? What can we be doing? What are things that are going to push us to be 1% better today with recruitment? And all of these things are going to do that, right? And so I'm taking note of a lot of these things. And so if you see me reach out to you personally, or you see a recruitment coach reach out to you, um, that would be, you might hear us say, "Hey, did you do this?" Right? You told me you were going to do that. Let's hold each other accountable. Yeah, Bill, check in on Chapter Builder access and see if alumni chapter subsidy is an option. I love that. If you want to email me, I can kind of connect you and kind of see what those options are. Happy to do that for you. We work with Chapter Builder on the expansion side, so happy to try to figure that out for you all there as an option. But yeah, so love what you guys are taking note of here. I would ask ourselves, every week, what are our action item or items, right? It is incredibly important for us to always think about what we're doing moving forward. I have coached some chapters, who really want recruitment to be a priority to say, hey, every week, with your recruitment committee in your group text, if you have a group text, if you have a WhatsApp, if you have a group me, whatever the case is, go throw in 3 to 5 action items each committee member is going to do that week that is going to push recruitment forward, right? And now we know what everyone's working on. Now we know they can be held accountable to. It's incredibly important that we talk and communicate about what those look like there. I think for me, huge action item is responding to any outreach that you all do in terms of ensuring that if you want draft messaging, if you want us to look over something, if you want more information about whatever the case is, I'm going to do that for you, getting all my one-on-one set up, right? And really, again, continuing to come prepared for next week to continue to provide as much resource and guidance from a recruitment standpoint so you all feel like you can go attack and reach those recruitment goals there. So with that being said, want to always leave time for questions. So I'll give us a few moments if there's any questions. Happy to feel free to put those in the chat or come off mute. All right. So seeing and hearing none, that concludes us for session number 2. So as always, I just want to thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for being here tonight. If you need anything, emails ron@deltu.org. There's my phone number. Feel free to shoot me an email or shoot me a text. Similar to last week, if you are wanting the recording of this webinar, please email me. And then once we get that recording converted, I will go ahead and send that over to you. It will also be up live, so all recordings will be put on the Amplify DU website on the DU website. So Amplify DU page of the DU website, excuse me. So you can find all past recordings there. But if you want the recording emailed to you, just shoot me an email. Once I get that all converted, I'll send that over. But other than that, thank you all. Really looking forward to the continued conversation, our upcoming sessions here. If you have yet to set up a one-on-one coaching call with your recruitment coach, please make sure you do that as well as a small group session. And once again, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and a happy 4th of July. And I will see you all next week, same time, to talk some more recruitment. So good night, everyone. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night.